Hong Kong democracy activist and devout Catholic Jimmy Lai has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. This week's sentencing ends a years-long, high-profile legal battle that many spectators considered a show trial. The devout Catholic and media mogul has long been a thorn in Beijing's side for his sharp criticism of the Chinese government. He was arrested in 2020 under a new national security law. Then last December, he was found guilty of 2 national security charges and a sedition charge. Lai's sentence is the longest delivered under Hong Kong's national security law, which has silenced nearly all dissent in the city. He would not be eligible for parole until his late 90s. His children say it's a death sentence for the 78-year-old who suffers from failing health after years of imprisonment and solitary confinement. But they also say his Catholic faith has sustained him through this difficult trial.
There was part of me that was hopeful, and there was part of me that was a bit like, why do we have to wait for due process if we know the result already? But as you know, that will be done. It's on God's terms, not ours.
I know my father. I know that he fears, just as anybody else does, to die alone, to never see his family again, to not be able to sleep in his own bed for one last time. But what he has done is that he refuses to be intimidated by that fear.
The Lai family and other advocates hope President Donald Trump can negotiate his release. He mentioned the imprisoned mogul to Chinese President Xi Jinping during a bilateral meeting last October. Claire and Sebastian, Jimmy's son and daughter, believe that Trump's next meeting with his Chinese counterpart, possibly in Beijing this April, could be crucial for their father's freedom. Joining us now is one of the most vocal advocates for Jimmy Lai's release. Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey co-chairs the Congressional Executive Commission on China and has nominated Jimmy Lai for the Nobel Peace Prize 3 times now. Congressman, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for interviewing those 2 wonderful son and daughter, Sebastian and Claire, of Jimmy Lai. I told both of them they're chips off the old block. They are amazingly faith-filled, courageous, articulate, and it's just like Jimmy Lai. He is a modern-day saint.
They're so strong in the face of just this news this week of the sentencing. And Congressman, you are asking President Trump to prioritize Jimmy Lai's release. What specific action would you like to see the president take in response to this 20-year prison sentence?
Well, I think he's got to encourage, admonish, use whatever word you want, Xi Jinping to let him out under humanitarian parole. Jimmy Lai is very sick. And, you know, the Chinese Communist Party has been notoriously cruel. They do not provide health care to people who are sick in prison even. So, you know, if you have a problem, it's going to get exacerbated by your jailing. And I think the president has to be very firm. I would hope that he would meet with Claire and Sebastian in the Oval Office before he departs. And to meet with them and look them in the eyes and see the humanity, the kindness, the courage that they have and the love they have for their father. I mean, I think the president has a big heart. I think our president will do a lot to make it happen. He has raised it a number of times, so now he has to really make it happen. And many thought that they had to go through this show trial first before any kind of serious talk about releasing him.
So now it's time.
But now's the time.
Don't
wait. Don't wait.
Should there be economic sanctions?
Oh, absolutely. I've been arguing for decades that because China is an exporting economy and they will crumble economically if they don't have the markets of the United States of America available to them for their cheap products, many of which where they have stolen the intellectual property rights of American businesses and they make that item now themselves. They are notorious for that. Well, that aside, what they do on the human rights side is outrageous, from forced abortion, which they've had for so many years, forced organ harvesting, and the way they mistreat unbelievably honorable and noble people like Jimmy Lai. So this could become the quintessential example of what Trump can do. You know, he's gotten prisoners out of Belarus. I had a hearing just a few weeks ago with one of the men that was going to win the election. His wife did win it, and then it was stolen by Lukashenko in Belarus. But he's gotten over 200 people out of prison. He needs to look Xi Jinping in the eye and says, let this man go.
You're also calling on Hong Kong to grant medical parole for Jimmy Lai, and time is of the essence.
Absolutely of the essence. Liu Xiaobo was the Nobel Peace Prize winner, and I was one of those who nominated him 2 years ago, and he got the Nobel Peace Prize. And then they wouldn't let him travel to the award ceremony, nor his wife, and he got very sick, and they did nothing to ameliorate the sickness that he was suffering from. And he died a horrible death in prison. We know how cruel they can be. And if they think that doesn't bring, they being the Chinese Communist Party, dishonor to their party and to their country. We love the Chinese people. They deserve better than the Chinese Communist Party, and certainly a guy like Jimmy Lai, who is a truth teller and just an amazing Catholic.
And Congressman, you have authored legislation, you've chaired numerous congressional hearings to raise awareness specifically on Jimmy's case and to call for his release. Why is this case so important? Why is Jimmy Lai someone that Americans need to know about?
They need to know because he was the quintessential truth teller to Beijing and to Hong Kong. And when the big push was being made to change Hong Kong from an oasis of capitalism, and they even had basic human rights, they guaranteed that when the transfer occurred from the United Kingdom to China. They signed all these agreements, including keeping the basic law there. There was a treaty called the Sino-UK Treaty. All of it has been abrogated and violated with impunity by Xi Jinping and the local authorities in Hong Kong. Well, we have a bill, it's by law, Marco Rubio did it on the Senate side, that it's called the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. It says that's it. If they do that, and they're doing it, and they've done it, turn the tourniquet on and say, no more, we're not going to allow you to trade. And we have to, I think, link our trading with human rights. Bill Clinton sold out everyone, including men like Jimmy Lai, back in May of 1994, May 26th to be exact, when he delinked human rights from trade. That's when the Chinese Communist Party said, human rights is a mere talking point for them. They will not link it to something that we really care about, and that's sending our exports to the U.S. And so I've written op-eds about it. I've done press conferences on it. On my website, we have a thing. The Wall Street Journal carried an op-ed I wrote called How Clinton Lost China. And everybody wants to forget it. I don't want to forget it because it repeats itself if we don't learn from it.
One thing I do want to ask you, Congressman, is we've heard Jimmy Lai's family speak beautifully about his faith right now in the prison cells. He's waking up and praying in the middle of the night, reading the Gospels. My final moment with you, can you speak to the witness he's providing? He's
providing a witness for all people of faith, including and especially Catholics, that this is how you deal with oppression. This is like the first century Christians and the current century Christians in places like China and other despotic areas. But he is doing it with such grace, with such kindness. He doesn't hate. And I find that, the last person I met with in China that was like that, many, but one that I'll never forget, Bishop Xu of Baoding Province. He was in for 30 years in prison. He was out briefly, then they rearrested him. This was in 1994. I looked him in the eyes. He celebrated Mass for my delegation, very small group. And we talked about, he goes, I pray for the Chinese Communist Party oppressors. He prays for them. And I'm saying I get angry when I get a bad editorial. It's just he prays for them. And we need to learn, and call on God. Please free this man and free others who are in a similar situation.
Congressman Chris Smith, thank you for continuing to speak out on this. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much.